Once upon a time, in the ancient city of Rome, there lived a man named Marcus. He was not a king or a warrior, but a simple man who worked as a clerk in the market. Every day he would wake up early, walk through the crowded streets, and spend hours recording the trades and sales of merchants. His life was ordinary, but inside, Marcus carried a heavy burden. He often felt lost, as if he were drifting through life without purpose. He worried about the future, feared failure, and sometimes felt overwhelmed by the noise of the world around him. One evening, as Marcus walked home under the dim light of oil lamps, he noticed an old man sitting alone on the steps of a temple. The man had a calm face and deep eyes that seemed to see right through him. Without a word, the old man handed Marcus a small scroll. It was a letter written by the great Stoic philosopher Seneca. Marcus had heard of Seneca before. Wise men spoke of him as a teacher who understood the struggles of the human soul. That night, by the flickering light of his lamp, Marcus read the words that would change his life forever. Seneca wrote about the importance of self-reflection. He said that most people live their lives like sleepwalkers, moving without awareness, reacting without thought. But a wise person, Seneca explained, takes time each day to look inward. They ask themselves questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fail? What can I learn? This practice, he called it evening reflection, was not just a habit. It was the key to a life of peace and clarity. Marcus was struck by these words. For the first time, he realized that his anxiety came from never stopping to examine his own mind. The next night, he decided to try Seneca's method. After finishing his work, instead of rushing to bed or losing himself in distractions, he sat quietly in his small room. He closed his eyes and thought back over his day. At first, it was difficult. His mind kept wandering, to the arguments he had overheard in the market, to the coins he had lost, to the fear of tomorrow. But slowly he began to see patterns. He noticed how often he reacted with anger when things did not go his way. He saw how much time he wasted worrying about things he could not control. Most of all, he realized that he had been living as if he had no power over his own thoughts. Night after night, Marcus continued this practice. Some evenings he would write in a small journal, just as Seneca advised. Other times he would simply sit and think. Over weeks and months, something remarkable happened. The storms inside his mind began to calm. When a merchant shouted at him in the market, he no longer shouted back. He paused, breathed, and chose his response. When he faced a problem, he stopped panicking and instead asked himself, "What is within my control?" And one day, a great fire broke out in the market. The flames spread quickly, destroying many stalls, including the one where Marcus worked. The other clerks were in despair, crying over their lost wages. But Marcus, though saddened, remained steady. He remembered Seneca's words. He suffered more in imagination than in reality. Oh, he could not change the fire, but he could choose how to face it. Instead of drowning in fear, he helped others salvage what they could. He spoke calmly to those around him, reminding them that they still had their health and their hands to rebuild. The people around him noticed the change. They began to ask Marcus for advice, and he would share the wisdom he had learned from Seneca. He told them that philosophy was not just for scholars, it was a tool for living, a way to train the mind, just as an athlete trains the body. He explained that self-reflection was the first step. Without it, a person could read 1,000 books and still remain a slave to their emotions. Years passed and Marcus grew older. His hair turned gray, but his mind remained sharp. One evening, as he sat by his window watching the sun set over Rome, he thought of the old man who had given him Seneca's letter. He never saw him again, but he understood now that the encounter had been no accident. The letter had been a gift, a light in the darkness. Marcus knew his time was coming to an end, but he was not afraid. He had lived a life of purpose, not because he had achieved great wealth or fame, but because he had learned to master himself. He had faced his fears, examined his mistakes, and grown stronger with each passing year. On his last night, he wrote one final entry in his journal. "My greatest journey is not across lands or seas, but into the depths of one's own soul. To know yourself is the beginning of wisdom. To master yourself is the greatest victory." The next morning, his neighbors found him peacefully gone, a small smile on his face. On his table lay the worn scroll of Seneca's letter, and beside it his journal, filled with a lifetime of reflections. And so, the story of Marcus reminds us that the Stoics were not just thinkers, but doers. They taught that philosophy must be lived, and the first step is self-reflection. Without it, we are like ships without rudders, tossed by every wave of emotion. But with it, we gain the power to navigate even the roughest seas. Seneca once wrote, "Every night, before you sleep, ask yourself, did I live today with virtue? Did I act with reason? Did I waste my time on things beyond my control?" These questions are simple, but they hold the key. So tonight, before you close your eyes, take a moment to look inward. Ask yourself, what did I learn today? How can I be better tomorrow? This small act repeated day after day is the path of the Stoic, is the path of Marcus. And perhaps if you choose to walk it, it will be your path too.